Hey, what's up everybody and welcome back to News Dose. So, gaming is a little strange sometimes. I mean, we've talked about some odd stories on the channel in the past, but now Xbox seems to be teasing a rather shocking PC Game Pass game. This is certainly unexpected, and in fact, it is an owned PlayStation game. Yeah, definitely a little bit of a strange turn of events here if this does indeed happen. But when you actually start to think about it, there is a rather logical conclusion as to why this might be possible. So we'll talk about that here in just a little bit, plus another really interesting Day 1 Xbox Game Pass game. Always good news in the world of Game Pass. But we do also have some Nintendo news to talk about today as well, as they might be prepping a soonish drop for one of their upcoming games. There's been a lot of questions around this one, so make sure to stay tuned for all of that. Before we get started though, make sure to hit all those fancy buttons below, subscribe, like, and of course, the bell notification buttons. It does help out the channel a ton, plus, you'll be able to keep up with all of the daily gaming news. With all that out of the way though, let's just go and get things kicked off with probably one of my favorite Activision studios, Toys for Bob. Toys for Bob, they've really won me over with some of their most recent games like Spyro Reignited, and of course, Crash Bandicoot 4. Y'all have probably heard me talk about this game a lot on the channel, and I think that Crash 4 in specific really showcased how truly talented they are. Because not only is it a good faithful follow-up to the original Crash trilogy that so many other studios failed with in the past, but in my opinion, it's flat out one of the better 3D platformers that's released within the last decade. But the reason that we're talking about them today is because they're seemingly teasing a new game announcement. Yeah, if you take a look over here at their tweet, they say, "Thanks for playing along. How many did you guess correctly?" It's pretty convenient. We have more wall space to cover, ... with that winky emoji face. Then you can take a look at the picture here where it shows all of their different games, and then on that 18th tile it has 3 question marks. So yeah, they're definitely teasing a new game announcement here, and I think that there's already a few strong possibilities as to what this could be. I think the one that a lot of fans are going to kind of hope for is Spyro 4. And in a way, that would make sense after Spyro Reignited. They took a very similar approach with the Crash Insane trilogy to Crash Bandicoot 4, but I actually think that this could be a completely different game. We have heard a lot about Wumpa League here in the last few years. We don't know exactly what this game is yet, but the common theme that we keep hearing is that it's some type of multiplayer game. In fact, there was even a leak right before the Summer Game Fest earlier this year that claimed that they were working on a Crash-oriented brawler. I mean, hey, Nintendo never brought Crash to Smash, so you might as well just go ahead and make your own game, right? But no, I actually do like this idea. There's plenty of Crash characters that could be in a game like this. I think that it would work very well. And if they wanted to go beyond just Crash, Activision Blizzard has plenty of characters that they could include, such as Spyro, as an example. For that matter, after the Microsoft acquisition, if this game were to be successful, they would then have a treasure trove of IP to kind of work with. Of course, I'm just speculating here, and I'm also jumping far ahead, but it does sound like a new game from Toys for Bob is on the way, whatever that may be. Now also, we do have a small update for Gamescom to talk about. We did get a couple more confirmations, so just to kind of go over this real quick, Hogwarts Legacy, The Expanse, a Telltale's game, the Callisto Protocol, and Dying Light 2 DLC have all now officially been confirmed to be there. This is in addition to already confirmed games like Sonic Frontiers, High on Life, that one's I'm very much looking forward to, and Return to Monkey Island. So we do already have 7 games for that opening night live event on August 23rd, and I'd say so far it is shaping up rather well if you do want some updated looks at some of these games specifically. At the very least, you'll know some games that you can expect to see here. Of course, though, there are some surprises planned as well, and I'm sure that's what most people are anticipating, but the hype for Gamescom certainly is rolling by this point. Let's go and jump into the Xbox Game Pass news, though, and there's actually 2 different things happening here. We'll first talk about what's 100% confirmed, and that's for an upcoming Day 1 release being Planet of Lana. Since this game was first announced, it immediately caught a lot of attention among fans, and honestly, it's really easy to see why. It's mysterious, it's beautiful, and quite simply, I'd say that it's just mesmerizing. To me, it kind of reminds me a little bit of the first time I saw Ori in the Blind Forest. Its art style and trailer was just so striking, and I think Planet of Lana has done a really good job as well with its initial trailer, just kind of creating that intrigue. And well, yes, now it has been confirmed to be coming to Xbox Game Pass Day 1, and you just have to love it. I mean, here's another yet really interesting game heading over to Game Pass Day 1. But unfortunately, as we've seen time and time again throughout 2022, we will indeed have to wait just a little bit longer before we get a chance to play this game ourselves. It is now official. They announced that it's been delayed to spring of 2023. This is to ensure a higher quality launch, which ultimately, I mean, that is a good thing at the end of the day. On one side, I do understand delays are always going to be disappointing. There's no doubt about that, but it's also for the best at the same time. So I think that's the best way to look at it, and I think for that matter, with this game specifically, I want them to take their time because it does appear it could be a special game when it eventually does release, again sometime in spring of 2023. Nonetheless, though, this is a day one Xbox Game Pass game, so just go ahead and add it to the list of upcoming exciting Game Pass games. Seriously, the next year or so, it is going to be a lot of fun for you subscribers out there. Now, actually about that, as for this other Game Pass game, this is where things start to get really crazy. I know I certainly wasn't expecting this, but the official PC Game Pass Twitter account seemingly is teasing a first-party PlayStation game. Yes, you heard that right, and that's none other than Death Stranding. Yeah, so as you can see here, the PC Game Pass account tweeted this: "Sometimes we just like a good landscape picture, hashtag new profile pic." And okay, I guess they have a new profile picture, whatever. But wait, hang on. What is this? If you look at their profile picture, it looks awfully familiar to the world of Death Stranding. In fact, fans have been able to spot this exact location within Death Stranding. So, I mean, with all intents and purposes, unless this is just some odd coincidence, it very much appears it could, in fact, be coming over to PC Game Pass sometime here soon. Now, if it does, this obviously will bring up several questions. Like I said before, Death Stranding is fully owned by PlayStation. This is a first-party Sony game, and even with the PC release, Sony is listed within the trademarks. So there's no doubt about that. Sony, in fact, does own this game. With that said, though, if this does happen, some might start to wonder, how is this even possible? Is Sony, out of all companies, now supporting Game Pass with their very own games, or at least on PC? Well, if this turns out to be true, maybe. But there's actually a little bit more to this story because the PC release of Death Stranding wasn't actually published by Sony themselves. This is where things start to take a turn because it was instead published by 505 Games. You have to remember that Death Stranding was actually one of Sony's first PC games. I think back then this was Sony just kind of testing the waters, if you will. But I mean, at the same time, I guess they forgot to add that special clause to block Game Pass like they did with Resident Evil Village, because here we are. I'd say, though, that I'd kind of look at this game in a similar light as to MLB The Show. While MLB The Show is, in fact, a first-party PlayStation-developed game, MLB does have a lot of control where that game will appear, and that's how it eventually found its way over to Xbox and Game Pass, respectively. And I think Death Stranding might be finding itself in a similar situation here, because 505, as I just said, handles its PC publishing. They might have a lot to say on where it can show up on PC. I don't really know if Sony has much of a say here or not, but theoretically, this could potentially explain what's happening here, if what they're teasing, in fact, does turn out to be Death Stranding for PC Game Pass. It will be strange, though, and I mean, you might even be able to unlock Xbox achievements for yet another PlayStation-owned game. Let me know what you all think about all this, though. Do you think that's what they're in fact teasing here, or instead do you think this is something else and maybe fans are just kind of jumping to conclusions? Let me know in the comments below. Now, like I said before, we do have some Nintendo news to talk about, as well as a few different things are currently happening. The first of which is an update for a delayed game, being Advance Wars Reboot Camp 1+2. This game has found itself in a bit of a weird situation where it's completely finished, but it's also been indefinitely delayed. It was supposed to release earlier this year, as we all know, but due to the very unfortunate situation over in Ukraine and Russia, with all that going on, Nintendo decided to just delay it until further notice. How long that further notice actually is, though, that's what's on the mind for a lot of Nintendo fans out there, and, well, something did just happen that could potentially indicate an upcoming announcement. Now, there's no guarantee here or anything like that, but it has been spotted that Advance Wars Reboot Camp has received some kind of maintenance on August 16th. So, I mean, this could theoretically indicate Nintendo is prepping for some type of announcement sometime here soon, or a potential drop. though I am kind of curious as to how exactly they're going to handle its release. I do kind of wonder if they'll just drop it out of nowhere or if they'll give it a full marketing campaign. I mean, if they thought its release was insensitive before, do they still think that way or what? That's a question that I do have, but I wouldn't necessarily be surprised if they just kind of give this game a soonish release. I mean, they could always just hold on to it until next year, but I don't know if there's necessarily just going to be this perfect time to release this game. And that's where Nintendo could decide they're just going to go ahead and release it, and maybe even sometime soon. I do kind of look at their upcoming schedule to kind of see where its release could fit in, and there's 2 months that does kind of stand out to me. One would actually be this month in August. I mean, technically, they could just drop Advance Wars as, again, this is a completely finished game. The other month, though, that I would kind of guess is December. I think that would be a good place for Advance Wars as well. This game was originally supposed to release last year in December before it got delayed the first time. So they could just move it into December, which was their original plan in the first place. Plus, with just so many delays this year, December is a little bit more calm than we usually see. So I think December or August, but either one of those 2 months would be a pretty good fit for Advance Wars. But as always, we'll just have to kind of wait and see. For the moment, though, just kind of take all of this as nothing more than speculation. Now, that's not quite all for Nintendo, though, because they also confirmed a new Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack game, being Wave Race 64, which will be out on August 19th. And I think this is a perfect inclusion for Switch Online. For those that grew up playing the Nintendo 64, you'll probably understand exactly why this is just so exciting pretty much immediately. But Wave Race 64 was a very beloved game back in the day. It was groundbreaking to a degree, and I think its art style all these years later is still very attractive, which really is a true testament to its quality. But I mean, it was insanely fun back then, especially with its multiplayer. I remember playing this over at my cousin's house, and we had a blast with this game, and I'd say that it is one of the better multiplayer Nintendo 64 games in general. And that right there is where Switch Online comes in, because now you have that addition to online connectivity. The days of only local multiplayer are far behind us, and this will give more fans the ability to try its multiplayer. I think this is one of the great things about what Nintendo does with their service, because they're not just simply bringing these games back and just doing nothing with them, but that addition of online connectivity does bring this whole new component to them. I think Nintendo has always done a really good job with their multiplayer, but that can just be highlighted even more now all these years later, and I think Wave Race 64 will absolutely show that. If you do have Nintendo Switch Online Plus expansion pack, though, I do highly recommend checking this game out for yourself, again, when it releases on August 19th. Let's go take a look at the poll of the day, though, where I asked you all if you've been subscribed to Xbox Game Pass this year. Have you been satisfied with what they've had to offer in 2022? And as you can see here, most of you all very much have been satisfied, with 64% of you saying yes, 19% of you said no, and then the other 10% said you are not subscribed. So that's a very good approval rating, with the wide majority of you being relatively happy here, and I think for a very good reason. This year has been a little bit slower in gaming, just in general, but I think for anybody who plays a wide variety of different games, there's just always something new and interesting to play in Game Pass. I mean, on a monthly basis, they release several Day 1 games, and even in just the next few weeks, I mean, if you look at it, they have multiple Day 1 games, being Tinykin, they have Midnight Fight Express, and also they have Immortality. All these are Day 1 games, and that happens seemingly every single month for Game Pass. Day 1 has just become synonymous with this brand, but then they also find a way to get a good mix of bigger games as well, like Immortals Phoenix Rising, as an example, or something like Assassin's Creed Origins. So there's a good mix of the two here, and again, I think that if you like a wide variety of games, as I very much do, then Game Pass is just such a no-brainer. Now, if you're one of those fans who just only want to play the latest blockbuster hit, well, okay, fair enough. But that's the cool thing about Game Pass, because they do find a way to get those games as well. Maybe not as periodically, but it does happen, and I think over the next year or so, that's really going to start to come and play, because they have games coming like Atomic Heart. That one looks really interesting. They have Stalker 2. They have A Plague Tale Requiem. And this doesn't even include their first-party releases like Avowed. They have Perfect Dark. They have Fable. Really, the list just goes on and on. I mean, the fact that they've managed to have such an enticing library in a slower year, like we're seeing this year, only tells me just how insane it's going to be once things start to pick up again. I mean, I can hardly believe a game like Starfield or Redfall Redfall is going to launch into Game Pass day one. Now, that's just crazy to me. But there's the reason that Game Pass has earned its reputation of being the best deal in gaming. I know for me, it's the main reason that I like this service so much. It introduces me to a lot of smaller independent games like Tunic or Dodgeball Academia, as an example. It brings higher profile games like I mentioned earlier, and then their day one first party games as well. I wouldn't praise this service near as much if they were just adding older games that I've already played. Like, it makes me happy and everything to see something like Immortals Phoenix Rising come to the service because, yeah, I enjoyed that game and it'll get more exposure and everything, but I've already played it myself. I'm subscribed for those day one releases, and they deliver in that regard every single month. And that's been the case in 2022 as well. It's introduced me to so many games that I might have missed otherwise. So I'm with you all here. I am very satisfied with Xbox Game Pass in the year of 2022, and I'm sure it's only going to get better from this point forward. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode. But if you liked the video, don't forget the bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.